Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Tuesday, August 20th, Gladstone Planning Commission meeting. And calling to order the meeting. Tammy, could you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Volbada,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
Here.
Commissioner Langston,
Present.
Commissioner Labonte,
Present. Oh, present.
Commissioner Pat Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Mercero,
I'm here.
Chair Smith.
Present. Let's do the flag salute. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So all items listed below are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a commission member or person in the audience requests specific items be removed from the consent agenda for discussion prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to adopt the consent agenda. Okay, first item is approval of July 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. Item number 2 is our monthly planning report. Item number 3, public hearing URD-24-01, formerly TXT-2401, amendment to the Gladstone Urban Renewal Plan, expanding the urban renewal district to include commercially zoned properties along Portland Avenue from Clackamas River to Abernathy Lane. Item number 4, public hearing ZC-24-01 and CP 24-01, proposal rezoning of Gladstone Nature Park entrance parcel to Meldrum Bar Park and Olson Wetlands to open space. No site development is proposed, only rezone the city-owned properties, which are currently zoned residential or commercial. City of Gladstone is the owner. Okay. So first item, approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting. Are there any corrections or additions?
I'd make a motion to approve the meetings from our July 16th meeting.
I second.
The motion was made by Commissioner Volbada and seconded by Commissioner Smith. Can you do a roll call, Tammy, please?
Commissioner Mercero,
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Labonte,
Yes.
Commissioner Langston,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
Yes.
Commissioner Volbada,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes. Meeting minutes were approved. Item number 2, the monthly planning report. Staff?
Thank you, Chair Smith. The planning reports before you this evening, I wanted to give a couple of updates on the approvals that this body made in July. We did get the Public Works canopy installed, so that building permit was approved and it was immediately installed so that the Public Works employees are able to enjoy that on their times off or lunch breaks and things like that. And then as far as the 220 Portland Avenue fill, we had communication just today asking what the next steps are. So I do think that a building permit's going to be applied for very soon. And they're working with Public Works on that sanitary sewer line potential that's there that would need to be capped. So I think that's going to be happening soon too. As far as upcoming future items, we did list this evening that we would do the rezoning to open space of the lands, which is our second item this evening, our second substantial item. And I just wanted to clarify the renaming of the urban renewal project, which was TXT 24-01, which would be a comprehensive plan amendment. We did get feedback from DLCD when we provided the 35 days notice that an urban renewal plan is not typically part of a comprehensive plan. And so they really didn't think that we needed to put it through that process. But there is other language pertinent this evening that asks the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to City Council on an urban renewal plan amendment. And so that's what we're doing for you this evening. So it's a little different than what we're used to. It's not an actual public land use hearing, but it's a recommendation based on urban renewal. And then next month, we will be before you with our parking code updates, proposed language for CFAC, as well as some code cleanup items based on state law that's changed over the last couple of years. And then in October, we're planning to bring you a work session on food carts and food cart pods, so we can start talking about that. Any questions about the planning report for July?
Will there be food samples at the?
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do.
On the food cart thing, and I'm assuming that's partly why we're gonna have that information. On Arlington, do they have an idea as to when they might break ground? if you
As far
will?
as I know, they have received their building permits and paid their SDC fees, so I think it's soon.
Okay.
Yeah, we were hoping to see that happen during this dry season. I think they're a little behind what they hoped to.
But they're like in the building.
They're moving forward.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
it's in progress. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is number 3, public hearing. And it says public hearing, but we're not really having a hearing, are we?
It's not really a public hearing, but we do recommend that you take any public testimony that's offered this evening in making your recommendation.
Okay, URD-24-01, formerly TXT-24-01. Amendment to the Gladstone Urban Renewal Plan, URP, expanding the urban renewal district to include commercially zoned properties along Portland Avenue and from Clackamas River to Abernathy Lane. Staff?
Thank you. And I am actually going to just hand it over to Elaine Howard, the city's urban renewal consultant, who prepared your packet materials for this evening. So Elaine also put together a PowerPoint for you and is available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. There's a button. There you go. Now you're on.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Elaine Howard, a consultant working with the Gladstone Urban Renewal Agency, helping to prepare this amendment to the Gladstone Urban Renewal Plan. I have done urban renewal consulting for the past 18 years all over Oregon. So it is my area of expertise. It's the only thing my firm does, so we know it very well. If you have any questions, I should be able to answer them. And if I can't, I will find out how to answer them and get back to you.
I have a question before you start. In your opening objectives, you're looking for a minimum population of 12,000. That's earlier on. I wonder, what is our official current population and what percentage is home ownership versus renting?
I'd be happy to look up our current as a population that's been PSU certifies those. So I'll look that up while Elaine is presenting. We'd need our census data to know ownership rental, I think. I don't believe I have that handy.
Put a sign up on the street that says Gladstone population. Where would that number come from?
That number comes from PSU every year, but it's not, I don't know how often we update that sign.
I just wondered how close we were to this 12,000.
I think we're very close to 12, a little over. Yeah,
Do we know what the percentage of rental versus ownership is?
not off the top of my, although
That's something that was looked at a lot, at least a few years ago.
in the it would be in the housing needs analysis, which was 2022, I believe. So I'll look that up while you're
Thank you.
talking.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm a little confused because I'm not sure to what you're referring.
One is on your first page under objectives, you said provide housing needs of a minimum population
Oh.
of 12,000.
Uh,
Where we are. in the-
Okay. And that information comes from your comprehensive plan. So anything in italics is directly from your comprehensive plan. Yes. Okay, sorry. What we will go through tonight is the role of the Planning Commission, the process of doing an urban renewal plan amendment. Since you haven't had to deal with urban renewal for a bit, we'll do a little or a crash course urban renewal 101. And then talk a little bit about what the plan amendment is and what the report accompanying the amendment is. Talk about conformance with the comprehensive plan and then the next steps. So the role of a planning commission in an urban renewal plan amendment or any urban renewal is not ever specifically defined in ORS 457 is the statute that governs urban renewal. It does say that any plan amendment does have to go to the planning commission for their recommendation, but it doesn't say on what. However, the city council has to adopt an ordinance that says the urban renewal plan amendment conforms to the comprehensive plan. So since you are the people who look at the comprehensive plan as a practitioner, we have tied those, even though the statute doesn't tie them together, we have tied those together because it makes sense for you to provide that recommendation to the city council on whether or not the plan amendment conforms to the comprehensive plan. So it's just a recommendation to the city council. The adoption process for an urban renewal plan amendment is it goes first to the urban renewal agency, and it has already done that. All of the different taxing districts are notified of a plan amendment, and we make a presentation to the county, and your city manager and I did that last week with your mayor. We have the planning commission review tonight, and then there is a city council hearing with notice to all utility customers and a vote on a non-emergency ordinance to be able to adopt an amendment. So what is urban renewal? Urban renewal is a financing tool to allow the urban renewal agency to do projects within a specified urban renewal area. Normally, when we all pay our property taxes in November, that property tax revenue goes directly to all of the different regular taxing jurisdictions. So the city, the county, the school district. Our property taxes in Oregon go up really for only two reasons. There is a 3% limit on our assessed value. And typically our assessed value does go up by 3% every year. So our taxes go up by 3% every year. If there are any substantial improvements or new construction, the assessor is allowed to reevaluate your assessed value. So that is another way that assessed value goes up and therefore taxes go up. When the city forms an urban renewal area, and you have an urban renewal area in effect in Gladstone, all of the increase in taxes in that urban renewal area over the time that the urban renewal area was established goes to the urban renewal agency to do projects and programs within that urban renewal area. So at the time the area is established, the assessor establishes a base value of the assessed value at that time. The taxes from that continue going to all the different taxing districts. It's only that increase in value that goes to the urban renewal agency. That is only for the urban renewal area itself. It's not for the entire city. So the taxing districts are impacted by that urban renewal area only, not by any growth outside of that area. The Gladstone urban renewal boundary originally had 284.5 acres. There is a statutory limitation that you may add only 20% of your original acreage if you ever want to expand your urban renewal area. So that equals 56.9 acres. There have been previous additions to this plan of 29.21 acres. So you have capacity for 27.69 acres. This amendment is 21.5 acres. So there is a small amount of remaining capacity if the agency ever decides to increase again. The Urban Renewal Agency is a separate body from the city council. It's not the city, it's outside of the city government. It is a separate agency, although it is governed by the city council members themselves. But it has its own rules and regulations and its own budget process. This is the proposed boundary expansion. The boundary expansion is shown in the gold. The blue was already in the urban renewal boundary. So Portland Avenue was already in the boundary, but not the properties on either side of Portland Avenue. With your recent efforts to look at development in your downtown and to encourage higher density and mixed use development in the downtown, the city and the agency decided it makes sense to try to use the urban renewal tool to help foster that new development within that area to increase the density in the area and provide additional housing and provide for infrastructure improvements in that area. So if this amendment goes through, this is what the urban renewal area would look like. You can see that originally the urban renewal area was that big area up to the north and east. Originally there was a new development that was going to go in there that was going to cause the increment to go up in the urban renewal area. And that development died and went away. And so the urban renewal area did not really produce the amount of revenue that they thought they were going to do. And really the focus has changed now to looking at the downtown and trying to implement your new downtown guidelines. There are statutory limitations on how much urban renewal there may be in any city. For a city your size, you can have up to 25% of your total acreage or 25% of your total assessed value in an urban renewal area. With this addition, you would have 13.1% of your total acreage, but only 3.83% of your total assessed value. The reason that 3.83 is important to you is that means the impact both on the city's budget and on all the other taxing districts is really minimal. You're only looking at the impact of growth within 3.83% of your total assessed value. So the impact is relatively minor on your city budget and your other taxing districts' budgets. The projects being considered in this urban renewal plan amendment are a trolley bridge reconstruction. This would be partial funding only. It wouldn't be able to fund the entire amount. Development assistance to try to foster that new development along Portland Avenue, infrastructure improvements, and then property acquisition for new development. That property acquisition would not be through eminent domain. It would be from willing sellers only. The reason why property acquisition is important and helpful is if the city or agency can acquire that property, they have better control over what gets developed on that property in the future. And you can specify that you want a higher density of development so that you're getting the most out of the ability of the zoning of that property and can get a higher density than you might get if you didn't have control over the development. That's been used effectively across many cities where I've worked with them with urban renewal as a tool. These are the potential costs of those programs. And so this would be continuing your storefront facade improvement grant program, having a tenant improvement grant program, having development incentives, downtown transportation improvements, the land acquisition for development incentives, and then other infrastructure. So this chart shows the constant 2024 cost of those improvements. And then it also shows year of expenditure costs because we don't have all of the money to pay for that now. So if you have to push these projects out into the future, the cost of inflation will cause those costs to increase. So this just shows what we anticipate the cost of those projects would be as you're able to accumulate the money in the future to pay for them.
I may ask.
Yes.
Just so I can better understand, the biggest number here is for other infrastructure. What might be some examples of, other infrastructure that we might be looking at?
I'm gonna let your city manager jump in here.
Good evening. I'm City Administrator Jackie Betts. So the first thing that would need to be done on Portland Avenue is to replace the water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure underneath there. The other infrastructure included in that, I believe, is a portion of the trolley trail bridge. That's what's considered the infrastructure.
Okay. So it'd be looking at basically the pipes and the bridge. Would this have anything to do with wires underground? Is that part of the plan?
No. Undergrounding wires would be very cost prohibitive for something like this.
I'm curious, the other infrastructure, Is that just for the urban renewal areas or just for Portland Avenue?
It would be on Portland Avenue, which is included in the urban renewal area.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, please proceed.
Okay. If there was any money left over in that other infrastructure after all of those improvements were done, they could spend that money anywhere else in the urban renewal area on anything. These are estimates of costs, and the budget committee may, in the annual budget process, move that budget around depending on what the needs are and what the costs are. So this is an estimate of that cost, but not a hard requirement or a limit. So the plan amendment is to do two things. Well, actually three things. It is increasing your boundary. It is adding those projects that we just looked at to be able to provide assistance for development. And it is increasing the maximum indebtedness. Yeah.
And just before so as it is now, so the street of Portland Avenue is in the, so the pipes would still be funded to be put in under Portland Avenue, whether we do this amendment or not.
We wouldn't have the funding to be able to do all of that if we don't do this amendment. This amendment adds additional maximum indebtedness authority, which is that additional $10 million to allow you to do those projects.
And may I ask, Jackie, I'm sure we've looked at funding that project in other ways. Where's that landed, or what does that look like?
Just specifically. the
Let's say that the sewer line.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, the infrastructure.
There is money in capital projects in our capital improvement plan for some portions of the water and the sewer.
Mhm.
It's the stormwater that is deficient. And so it'd be a combination of funds from our capital outlay versus the urban renewal funding to do that.
Okay.
A lot of people since 2017 have asked, why haven't we done anything in our downtown revitalization plan?
Mhm.
It's because of the funding mechanism that we need in order to do the infrastructure, the final streetscape design on top with widening sidewalks. And that would be the phased in approach that we would start with the expansion of the urban renewal.
So those improvements are tied to us increasing this boundary.
Correct.
And
Just really quick, since we're at a break here, will the library be part of, would that be considered next year in an assessment? And is that accounted in these numbers, in the overall value in the assessment part?
The library is not assessed
Okay,
because it's a public facility.
yep. I just didn't know if that
Yep.
new structure.
So maximum indebtedness is a spending limit. So it is the controlling feature of urban renewal in Oregon. There isn't a time frame that's a controlling feature. It is when you've reached a certain amount of money that you have spent in an urban renewal area. The maximum indebtedness in this area now is $23,589,427. The city council is able to increase that maximum indebtedness by a specified amount. It's a statutory limitation, and that amount is 20% of the original maximum indebtedness as adjusted for inflation. So that allowable increase is $10,174,550. Those are the funds that would pay for those projects that we saw earlier. So the new maximum indebtedness, if amended, would be $33,763,977. The great thing about this urban renewal area is it is producing a significant amount of income at this time now. So by increasing that maximum indebtedness, you only have to lengthen the time frame of the urban renewal area by 4 years. It was going to end in 2030. These projections would have it, and I think that comes on the next slide, but it has it ending in 2034. So a lot of times when a new urban renewal area is established, it's a 30-year plan, and you have to wait that long to be able to get the money. The great thing here is you you already have an income stream that's fairly healthy. And that $10 million can be accomplished and be fully funded. It's projected by the fiscal year in 2034. So this just shows the anticipated timeframe that that money would come in. So in years 1 through 5 after the amendment would be about half of that money, about $5 million. And then in years 6 through 10, a little more than $5 million. So this
And
is
these
one-
funds would come from our already existing property taxes,
That's
correct?
So
Okay.
it's not an increase in anybody's property tax.
We're using our existing.
It's from taxes being paid, and it is taking those taxes that otherwise would go to the city or the county and using them within the urban renewal area instead.
Thank
And-
you for that clarification.
For that forecasting or growth projection, I guess, how conservative is that? Or like, what kind of growth are we expecting? What portion would need to be redeveloped to achieve this goal that we're seeing here?
In our forecast, we looked at the existing growth. We added a percentage increase on top of that. And then we did project new apartment mixed-use development happening every 2 years, having some kind of development happen within the area to be able to reach that forecast. So it's fairly aggressive, but I believe the city has gotten a lot of interest in that area, but until that infrastructure is improved, they're not able to allow that development to proceed.
And when you say not able to allow that development, it's like a hard stop with the stormwater?
Well, I don't know if the infrastructure would support the type of mixed use that we're allowed since we've changed the zoning down there.
Okay. Okay, so it's not that we're waiting on wider sidewalks to bring in developers to bring in units. It's that we don't have the infrastructure to support the units now,
That is
But-
correct.
but we don't have applications that have been stopped because of infrastructure.
That is correct.
Okay.
But the incentives in the program to bring in a developer would also be there for us to use some of those funds to build down there.
Okay, thank you.
I am fully aware that at least in one building or one part from between Dartmouth and Clarendon, those block of buildings right there, I know that the sewer lines and everything are pretty mixed up. So I do know there needs to be totally new. I do all my trading in Gladstone and they're like, they came out and they don't know what line goes to which place, so I know there's some serious issues there. So please continue.
This just shows the impacts on the different taxing jurisdictions. We did send, the city sent letters to all the different taxing districts, letting them know of this potential impact and what these impacts would be. This chart was included in that information. At this point, Jackie has not heard back from anybody complaining or having a problem. We did go in front of Clackamas County last week and got reactions from them, and they, as we know with Clackamas County, they were mixed because there are different opinions, political opinions at Clackamas County. The impacts on school, there was an odd thing that happened, and this doesn't really impact you very much, but when we looked at the boundary, we saw that the assessor's office had miscategorized 2 lots, which made it so that we had $25 impact on the fire district and a $6 impact on the North Clackamas Park. They, at this point, because they're characterized that way, we had to project those impacts. The assessor's office did recalculate those and change the code on them, so they won't really be impacted in the future, but they do show up on our slides as being impacted. Education's a little different in Oregon because our education's funded through the state school fund. So it is the state school fund that's impacted, and the state school fund has other resources to backfill urban renewal. Funding through the state school fund is on a per pupil basis. That per pupil number does not go down because you have urban renewal in Gladstone or because there's urban renewal in Portland or Lake Oswego. The per pupil number is set by the legislature, and then the legislature, they have to figure out where that money comes from to be able to set that amount. So it's an indirect impact on all of the different education districts. In the original plan that was adopted, there was a small section on relationship to local objectives. As we're adding projects that deal with housing, transportation, and economy, we looked back at those sections of your comprehensive plan and made findings that are urban renewal kinds of findings to support the fact that this project, which has those kinds of projects that do implement provisions from your comprehensive plan's intent for housing, transportation, and economy, are being funded through the urban renewal plan amendment. That's how we make the findings on conformance to comprehensive plan, is because you're wanting to make sure that the projects that you're doing, how you're spending that money, is in line with what your comprehensive plan has laid out for your community. So in the staff report that you received, we made those findings for the housing, transportation, and economy. I can go through those for you if you want. Since they were fairly short, I imagine you've read them. So if you have questions, you can ask me, or if the chair would like me to go through them, I'm happy to do that too.
Does anyone here have any questions?
So just so I'm on the right page, when I'm looking at some of the, I'm on 3-41. Is that essentially where we are now, looking at the infrastructure part, the housing, transportation, economy? I just want to make sure I'm.
3-41 is actually just part of the blight findings in the
Yep,
report on the plan that just shows that there are conditions that are deficient within the area.
Mhm. Okay.
The statute lays out certain requirements for what has to be in a plan amendment and what has to be in a report accompanying a plan amendment. So our report follows those requirements in the statute. To talk about each different section here is a section in the statute that says you have to address that section. So that's the most important thing of that report for you, is the money part of how much money you have, what projects it's going to be spent on, and how long this will go. That's really the relevant part for an urban renewal plan. The rest of this are just statutory requirements that this was written in 1957. They're not really relevant anymore, but we still have to do them.
So if I just, so on 3-41, or so I can just get a sense for what I'm reading here in the plan. This does not mean that these projects are included in their urban renewal plan, is underlined there.
That's correct.
So these are, so I guess what I'm asking is, do we have like a set list of everything that, I mean, we do, of what's going to be included in this? How, and I'm not speaking clearly here, but I know, you know,
That's
as a
okay.
person who spent a lot of time with the traffic safety part of this and talking about streets, I don't,
If you look
recall
at
too
page
much about these items.
3-22
Mhm,
and in
yep.
your packet, these are the actual projects and activities that are being added to your existing plan. So your existing plan has some projects and activities that you're already authorized to do. This adds the traffic and circulation improvements, adds trolley bridge reconstruction. In your existing plan, you're already authorized to do infrastructure improvements, so we didn't have to add specific language for that.
Mhm.
But then under development assistance, we did add different types of programs to be undertaken in development assistance. So the things that were added are specifically outlined here on page 322.
Any other questions?
Well, it mentions with the urban renewal agency will assist in the following types of private development, one of which would be the grant programs. Is that something that's happening now with some of our businesses?
There is no grant programs currently active.
And I misspoke on that
Okay.
because so many of my cities have grant programs, but that is something that would happen and I did miss.
So there, so in approving, so there, for Gladstone, there wouldn't be grant programs?
It would be.
There would
There would be, okay,
Yes,
all right.
we would be able to do storefront and tenant improvement grant programs with some of this money.
Mhm.
Yes.
When I say I misspoke earlier, when I outlined the projects, I said continuing.
Yeah.
And it's not continuing, it's establishing.
Yeah.
new. That was my.
So the urban renewal agency would be able to help businesses.
That's correct.
So for example, let's say I have a storefront and I say, hey, what can you do for me?
If you want to put up a new awning and it may require a design review application, but those are the kinds of partnerships that we're trying to establish on Portland Avenue with these funds.
If you've driven through the city of Sandy recently,
Mhm.
you can see that many of their buildings within their downtown have that mountain theme.
Yeah.
And even the kind of one-story commercial have the awnings on them. That is all through their storefront program. And they went through a great process of establishing a theme for their community. It's a much bigger area than the Portland Avenue. But that's the kind of thing that you can do with the storefront grant program.
And I'm sorry. So we have an area now under this, correct? And we're adding to it.
Yeah.
So so that grant program is only is for if we you know, approve this and move it to council, or are there, so there basically, are there grant funds for people that are within that area now?
No,
Okay, so this is like,
this
For
is
this
the
to-
funding mechanism for us to
Okay.
move forward on these projects that are listed here.
okay,
And really what you're looking at is not approving projects. You're looking at, do these projects conform with your comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
And the findings that you want new housing to occur within your area. You want to improve the economy. You want to help your businesses. And all of that's already outlined in your comprehensive plan. So it's just saying these things are already values in our community and our comprehensive plan. And this funding mechanism is helping us get there.
Sorry to get hung up on the finances, but how much acceleration of development is included in the forecasting?
I will have to,
We haven't had any large complexes in that Portland Avenue downtown zone to date, right? So
Correct.
anything that we project is going to be a lot more than we have right now.
That's correct.
Okay.
I did not bring that information with me because typically the planning commission. Okay, it's here. It's on page 3-25. And it says, annual growth rate is just 3% plus potential new mixed use development. So that 3% is what happens to most of our properties anyway. And then plus anticipated new mixed use development in the future.
And for that 10-year payback period, then some sort of number would have had to go in there for anticipated. Okay, I think that's the part I'd like to know.
And I can follow up on that with you later. Usually the planning commission doesn't delve into the financials, so I didn't bring
Okay.
that information with me. But
All good.
I'm happy to provide that to Jackie and she can follow up with you.
That would
Thank
be
you.
greatly appreciated because I know I can not only speak for myself, but others of us that keep that in mind too as we're looking forward. Yeah.
Okay, yep, we can do that.
Okay. Please continue unless you're done with your report.
I'm
Okay.
close to done. The next steps are on September 10th. There'll be a city council hearing that is advertised through utility bills and also, I believe, in the
Newsletter.
Gladstone newspaper. And then they would vote on a non-emergency ordinance at that same meeting. And this is a potential motion for you. The only reason that I do the motion is sometimes it's confusing for planning commissions because you use different language than what the statute uses. So the most important thing for us to use is to use that word conforms, because that is the statutory language, that the amendment conforms to the comprehensive plan. So you can change that up as you want, but if you'll use the verb conforms, if indeed you agree that it does, that would be very helpful.
Jackie, I would like, I just want to clarify, because I know we did, and I don't want anyone to think this is a part of it. We were awarded a grant for some improvements on Portland Avenue, were we not? But it's separate from this, correct?
I'm not sure what grant you're referring to.
Well, I think, I know.
You were thinking of the same one, weren't you?
Well, I know that, and it's often brought to my attention from folks in the city, like, where'd all that money go? And I'm like, I don't know exactly know what money you're talking about, but I know,
It was like for the streetscape.
for the streetscape is my understanding, for the painted crosswalk at Dartmouth and Portland. There were funds.
No, there's transient lodging tax dollars comes in, and the transient lodging strategy was created out of that. And that's where the painted crosswalk was at there. We received funds from Metro to do the downtown revitalization plan,
Okay.
but that is the only grant that we've received.
I thought we received something else
There's-
too.
It was just to write the plan.
Yeah.
Not to do anything in it.
That's,
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 those plans are
Yeah.
all great, but they don't have money
No,
to
what I
help you
do,
make it
yeah.
happen. So
Okay.
So,
that's why urban renewal is important, is because it actually brings money to the table to implement those great plans that you put together.
and just to mention, so there is a dialogue in the community that the city's sitting on roughly $20 million right now. So I'm not sure how the city tries to clear that up, but that seems to be a common dialogue
yeah, but
in
to
town.
give you an example, the Marsh property sold a year ago,
Mhm.
right? If that had been in the urban renewal plan that we're talking about expanding, the city could have bought that property and then been in control of what was being built there. But it's all comes down to the funding mechanism. And in Gladstone, we've been very careful not to raise property taxes and to spend within our means.
Mhm.
And now we're at a point where we've got this wonderful downtown revitalization plan. But the only way we're going to be able to start implementing that
Mm.
is if we expand these properties in the urban renewal agency.
And so that ultimately comes with, higher density, more population, and some of the problems we have now that, some might say would be, become worse, being within that half mile to McLaughlin Avenue. So there's no parking requirements there, and added population on a road where there isn't direct, let's say, not the greatest transit through there. It's not on a massive line on Portland Ave. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the original downtown plan, but it's changed a lot since then. The building heights have gone up. The requirement for the landscaping requirements have been reduced. I wish I felt better about these expansions to this plan. So would this in any way, does this change the code?
Doesn't change the code, doesn't change the zoning. It just provides money.
Just includes it in our already existing urban renewal.
That's correct.
Correct. And you went through a process of changing the zoning already. So you have the downtown overlay zone. You're going through a process of designating a town center to conform with the new rules that the state has put in place. They have removed the parking requirements. So I understand, Commissioner Labonte, what you're saying. But if it conforms to the comprehensive plan, then the planning commission should move forward.
Have you completed your report now? Okay. Do we have anyone that would like to speak on this?
I've not received any requests, no.
No requests, okay. Commissioners,
I had a question.
go ahead.
For the different grant programs, do we have like a grant program manager that handles that? What's the process? Would it be like a first come, first? How do we publicize that and then make sure that the money gets to the correct people?
Yeah, so last year we created an economic development coordinator position, and so this would fall under that job description. And right now, we're looking at what other cities do, and the one that we like is the city of Milwaukee. They have a very good, robust facade improvement program. But we haven't put that into place yet because we have to get through all of these steps first before we move forward. But it would be under the guise of that position within the city.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
No. But as a point of clarification, on page 342, the city of Gladstone is listed in 2024 of having a population of 11,865, which is real close to 12, to the 12,000.
That's right.
If I may jump in as well, I did look up those numbers you requested at the beginning. So in 2023, PSU did certify our population as 12,140. So just
Okay.
a little on the other side of 12,000. And then as far as homeownership versus rental, our housing needs analysis in 2020 was based on US Census Bureau from 2012 to 2016. And that had us at a 60-40 split, 60% homeownership, 40% rental. And now today on the Census Bureau website, they have listed 2022 American Community Survey 5-year data. Their estimate is 64.6% homeownership with a plus or minus 4.5%. So
Right, right there.
60-40, let's call it 60-40.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Only 24 years late to that 12,000 mark.
Yes.
And so to go back to the trying to help businesses with that grant that, we pass this and they have access to the grant to do some improvements to their facade. Is that for the entire urban renewal area, or would it just be for the area that we're adding now?
It hasn't been established yet, and please keep in mind that even when this is approved, you're still a year or two out before those programs are in. But we're foreseeing it be part of the Main Street district that we have identified on Portland Avenue.
So somebody like on 82nd wouldn't be able to access that.
If they're not in
grant
the
funds.
urban renewal area.
But so it was, there's a large part of the city in that area. So
On 82nd Drive.
Yes, if it
And-
is in the urban renewal area, it could be eligible for that
Could be
assistance.
okay.
And we would have to make all those programs available to everyone in the urban renewal area.
We wouldn't have to.
Okay.
We could limit it to a specific area. Typically, there are matching requirements with grant improvement programs as well. But that is something that hasn't been established yet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Who would establish that?
Probably administration.
The person who got hired under that
Mhm.
program.
With input
Would
from the
work on
community,
it.
I assume, and city council, or?
Yeah, we could take input from that as well.
If there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Can we just do one more check for any comments from anyone in the live audience or anyone online? I don't, now would be a good time to raise your hand if you're interested in making a comment. I'm not waiting for anyone specifically. I just know sometimes it doesn't, never feels like
No
the
one
right
in the
time.
audience has
Okay,
any questions? Okay.
Online, and no one has signed up to speak.
okay, thank you.
And they still can come to the September 10th
yeah.
city council
Correct.
meeting. Yes.
Yeah, so our job's to recommend city council review. Does anybody feel like this report does not conform to the comprehensive plan?
As far as what I've read, it does conform.
I believe
Yeah.
its intent definitely is in line. So I move that the Gladstone Planning Commission adopts the facts, findings in the Planning Commission memo and incorporate them into Section D of the Gladstone Urban Renewal Plan as finding that the Gladstone Urban Renewal Plan uh, substantial amendment 2024 conforms with the Gladstone Comprehensive Plan and recommend that the Gladstone City Council adopt the proposed plan amendment.
I second.
Commissioner Langston made the motion. It was seconded by Commissioner Volbada. Yes, thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Volbada,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
Yes.
Commissioner Langston,
Yes.
Commissioner Labonte,
Abstain.
Pat Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercero,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes. We are recommending to our city council. Thank you very much. On to item number 4, public hearing for ZC 24-01 and CP 24-01. Okay. Where am I starting here? Conduct, the order of business we will follow in conducting this hearing will be presentation of a staff report, entry of correspondence into the record, public testimony, additional staff comments, questions from the commission, hearing closed, no further testimony from the audience, and discussion by commission and decision. The testimony, any interested person may present testimony concerning the proposed amendments. The public hearing is your opportunity to comment on the proposal before the city makes a decision. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want you to give us your point of view. Help us to understand why you have drawn your conclusion and how it relates to the proposal. Public testimony for this hearing will be called for in 3 groups. Testimony in favor of the proposal, testimony opposed to the proposal, and neutral testimony. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the testimony forms and submit to the city recorder. I will recognize those persons wishing to speak, and any questions should be addressed through me. When you testify, please state your name and address for the record, as this hearing will be taped. If you are participating online, please click the raise your hand button at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. If you are participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. I can't say it. Abstentions and conflicts of interest. At this point, I would like to ask the members of the commission if they are abstaining from this matter or need to declare any conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature of the conflict of interest and indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain from the hearing. Are there any commissioners that, Commissioner Volbada?
No conflicts of interest. I will be participating.
Commissioner Weiss?
I will declare, I live close to the Olson wetland, semi-adjacent. I do feel like I have an impartial view on this and I plan to participate tonight.
Okay, and Commissioner Langston?
No conflict of interest. I will participate.
Commissioner Mercero?
No conflict of interest.
Commissioner Labonte?
No conflict. I will participate.
Commissioner Smith?
No conflicts and I will participate.
And this is Commissioner Smith. I have no conflict of interest and will be participating. Okay. Staff, please present.
Thank you, Chair Smith. We have a brief PowerPoint that we're queuing up here. Looks like we're on. Thanks, Tammy. So this evening, we are discussing a zone change and a comprehensive plan map amendment to 8 separate parcels that comprise the Gladstone Nature Park, the entrance parcel of Meldrum Bar Park, and the Olson Wetlands. Oop. I think that was me pushing the wrong direction. So it makes a sound. So here I've just cut out from the staff report the proposed change of the zoning. Currently, the nature park is zoned C2, community commercial. The Meldrum Bar Park entrance and the Olson Wetlands are both currently zoned MR, multi-household residential. So all of those are proposed to go to the OS, open space zoning. As far as the comp plan designation, the Gladstone Nature Park is high density residential. So we do have a bit of a conflict between the comp plan and the zoning map at this time. Meldrum Bar Park entrance is presumed medium density residential. The comp plan doesn't go all the way to the west side of the city, but it looked like it was within that type of zoning. And then the Olson Wetlands is low density residential. So on the comprehensive plan, we're looking at all residential designations that are currently in place, but we do have open space as a comprehensive plan designation. So we are recommending that be updated as well. So why do we want to rezone and redesignate these parcels? Well, in the open space zoning district, that's okay. The things that we want to do on these properties over the next 20 years based on the Parks Master Plan and the Meldrum Bar Park Site Plan and the Nature Park Site Plan, they're all park and open space related improvements. And so those are not permitted in the residential zoning district or the commercial zoning district. The open space district is where we can either permit outright or conditionally the types of uses that are planned for these properties. As far as the residential capacity question goes, because that's always something that we look at when we look at rezoning parcels out of residential. Are we removing capacity from our city to be able to provide needed housing? So we look back at our housing needs analysis, and this picture, which is really blurry, I'm seeing now, is from our buildable lands inventory. So the nature park was not zoned residentially, just comprehensively designated residentially. So it was not considered in the housing needs analysis, and it's identified as constrained on this inventory. The wetlands and the Meldrum Bar Park entrance were called public or exempt, so they were not given any number of housing units of capacity with the most recent housing needs analysis. So rezoning and redesignation of these parcels will not have an impact on the capacity of housing in the city. In addition, as far as economic development goes, the Gladstone Nature Park was added to the city beginning in 1999, was the first set of parcels that the city took ownership of with the designation of the open space, and at that time, the library. And so the commercial designation of that was no longer inventoried to have any economic development impact within the city for 25 years, the past 25 years. And then we're also required by state law to look at the roadway capacity and make sure that any zone changes we're making won't have a larger impact on the roadways, whether existing or proposed. And we do not think that rezoning these to open space will have a larger impact on roadways with future park development than if they had, say, developed under their residential zoning capacity. So in your staff report this evening, there are findings relating to the Oregon statewide planning goals, the Gladstone Municipal Code, Metro's functional plan, and the transportation planning rule that all indicate compliance of this zone change and comprehensive plan amendment change. So we do find that this proposal is in compliance with all the applicable requirements. This staff report was provided to DLCD, as well as notice was provided to the public. Anyone who owns or resides in property within 250 feet of any of the sites were mailed notice of this, and this was also published in the newspaper. So with that, we do recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this proposed, that should say zoning map amendment and comprehensive plan designation amendment. So apologies for the top. The bottom is correct. Sample motion there to recommend approval of the rezoning and redesignation to open space. And also, if a recommendation is made this evening, we do ask that you specify the September 10th, 2024 City Council meeting so that anyone who's participating this evening is aware of the next chance to testify. And that is it for the staff report. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Heather.
I have one, Ms. Austin. Can you just give us a 40,000-foot view of open space, what you can and cannot do with open space?
Yeah, yes. So anything on this list would be what you could do with that. So if you zone it open space, it can be parks, it can be fields, it can be courts, it can be community gardens. Of course, anything
I
on,
missed that completely.
oh, no problem. The first list would come before you in a design review application. The second list would come before you in a conditional use and design review application.
Thank you.
Yes.
How do, if I may ask, let's say we do this,
Yes.
I think it's good. What would have to happen, let's say 15, 20 years from now, there's a different thought process and people want to get out of that open space designation. Is that a
Well-
lengthy process? Is that?
Well, remember, these are all city-owned parcels.
Yep.
So it would first require, I believe, a vote of the residents of Gladstone, the voting public of Gladstone, to decide to not own that as park anymore. So it, you certainly could do that, but there is a, it's difficult to do that for the purpose of maintaining parkland.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
A couple of these parcels, at least Olson Wetland, I know is gifted to the city. I don't know if there was any stipulation on the gifting there of what use it can be used for.
No, and I did include those deed transfers in the packet this evening, so I did read through those to ensure that. I will say that I know when the Gladstone Nature Park was gifted to the city, there was plans for a library. And then in 2018, the public voted to move that library site onto Portland Avenue in the old Civic Center. So that has been changed and is now public open space only on that property.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you very much for including the deed information because I found that helpful to myself anyway. I
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And any other questions? Commissioner Mercero, do you have any questions at all?
I do not.
You do not? Okay. No other deliberations?
I just want to direct to 445, that's the Olson deed. And there's that second paragraph, the subject to obligations of the city of Gladstone to retain the subject parcel for strict public use for at least 3 years. And 2, if the property is sold after said 3 years, to use the proceeds of such sale for park and recreation purposes within the city limits and only for such purposes. So,
Thank you.
check.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no further questions, does anybody in the audience have anything that they would like to testify to?
We do have one that has signed up to speak, and that is Les Poole.
Okay. You need to hit the button.
There we go. You'd think I'd never done this before.
Thank you.
Lived in Gladstone for over 10 years and been in Clackamas County for 30. And I'm a real advocate for parks, a big advocate for public involvement, and spent 8 years almost on the planning commission here. And I've got some thoughts about what's being proposed. First of all, the need for open space and parks is somewhat driven by population. If we're going to have more and more people moving here, we obviously need more and more parkland and open space. So in spirit, I totally support that. When I look at the Olson wetland, it seems like a no-brainer. Certainly support that change in zoning, as I support the proposed change for the property at Meldrum. The other property is problematic, and I think when I'm done speaking here, the message from me will be simple, and that is there's a lot of conflicting paperwork and really a lot of unknowns that come with that property. And when I'm done speaking, you'll probably get the message that that item should be pulled and not approved this evening. I'm making a real strong recommendation there. So one of the issues we have there is the property was seized in a condemnation for the library and parks, actually parks, open space, and a portion for a library. And at one point, there was a plan to basically turn most of it into a library. And a second resolution came along that designated the property as a library site. You've already heard that in the comp plan, it's designated one way, but what really matters is the zoning is community commercial. And I'm not here to oppose that, not at all. But again, when you look at the conflicting resolutions, you'll also find that somewhere in the mix is on that property is a requirement or agreement. And I'm not sure where it's at. It's been floating around for years, but Gladstone needs a water tower. Gladstone needs a water tower more than it needs a lot of other things. It really does. And that's something that was included and mentioned in the resolution, the first resolution on that property. And I'm not going to sit here and read every resolution to you, but I can promise you with the years of experience I have, if you take the time to look at these various confusing aspects, you'll see why I'm here. I'm not here to stop progress or to stop things from happening. If I could, the last thing I would say is that there is a difference between a deeded designated park and open space. And given the situation, I think the best course of action for the city would be to designate this property as a park. Currently, that property, unless I've missed something recently, and if I have, I apologize, but currently right now, we have community commercial zone property that's designated something else in the comp plan, which that's not a hard fix. But by resolution, it's a library site. So without some type of resolution or fix or clarification, I don't think you in good conscience can really include this property in this evening's approvals. I would have turned in some written testimony, but I'm working about 14 miles away from where I could get get any kind of an internet. I'll wrap up here. Yeah, I've covered my thoughts. And, you know, any quick questions, or did I say anything that was extra confusing?
I guess I don't understand. You don't want it to be open space, but designated as park space?
Well, I'm not opposed to designating it as open space.
Mhm.
I would prefer to see it designated and deeded as a park.
Okay.
One thing about open space can be rezoned.
Oh,
If you have a park, not
can.
that would happen here, but the city owns it,
Mhm.
but you can understand how that could happen.
sure.
We had that happen in Milwaukee at Kellogg Lake. And so if it's a park, the only way to change it is to condemn it.
Mm.
No one's going to ever condemn the park, but it just provides
Security.
the intent
Mhm.
from the start. And again, it's not, in terms of the legal language and the unanswered questions and all of the, frankly, the baggage that comes with that property, I don't see how you could make a decision this evening to designate it anything. Whether if tonight was about a park or designating it as open space, legally, I just don't think you can get there. In other words, I would send this back and bring it back at a later date. I'm sure you can clean this up and make it happen in the future. So that would be my strong recommendation. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Heather, could you speak to that for a moment, please?
Sure. Yeah, so as far as the library piece goes, it was definitely part of the original property when it was the resolution to bring this property into city ownership. Library was included. But I think from a legal standpoint, that was then overridden by the voters in 2018 who voted to place the library in downtown. We can certainly, you know, if this moves forward this evening, which we still recommend it does, we can have the legal team weigh in on that to move forward to city council, but I don't think it's a concern. And as far as the water tower, that's in the Gladstone Nature Park site plan. So it is moving forward with the water tower in the approved plan for the park. A water tower is a utility facility. This is in upland habitat. That's a conditional use in your open space zone. So it would come before you again for approval, but that is something that can be done with the open space zoning on this property. So I don't have concerns related to the park designation only, not including the library anymore. It's not in the Gladstone Nature Park site plan anymore to have a library because that was addressed elsewhere in the city. And the water tower is still in there, so I'm not concerned.
May I ask, as a member of the Parks and Recreation Committee
Yes.
during the planning phase for the nature park, the plans that we were presented with and that were ultimately voted on included purchasing the property at the entrance on Webster. Those plans, and there was definitely, there's, the need for the water tower. And then I think a lot of people aren't excited about that idea too, for various reasons we can get into. But does any of this kind of hinge on the purchase of that property?
No, I mean, perhaps the Gladstone Nature Park site plan development does, but not the rezoning of these properties. If and when the city acquires the additional parcels, then we would come back through and rezone those to open space as well and make them part of the larger park site. But at this time, we're just proposing to rezone the pieces that are owned by the city.
Thank you very much. Tammy, have we received any correspondence?
We have not, but we've had another individual indicating they're wanting to speak, and that would be Brian Early.
Okay, please come forward.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brian Early. I've been a Gladstone resident for 23 years.
For the record, will you please give your address as well?
5490 Abernathy Court.
Thank you.
My wife and I have been there for 23 years. And so here to express approval or endorsement or encouragement towards the what you're proposing about the wetlands specifically. We've been able to, I guess, assess its virtue over time and being able to see that it's a hidden treasure that I think Gladstone has without any real sight on scene unless you go out there and walk it, but it certainly has its potential. And so whatever can be done to enhance that, whether that's to create egress on Risley or whatever means to create something like Boardman, what they're doing at the Boardman wetlands, or to leave it as is and just let it soak, and remain as a wetlands for nature and, wildlife habitat. But yeah, so we're anyway saying we appreciate that. There's an adjacent property there that was trying to be developed, and that brought Olson to I guess you might say a highlight through numerous scenarios. But there's certainly the reason I guess you have for making it a wetlands, but or an open space, but what to do with it certainly is, I guess, up for futuristic considerations. But the adjacent property to be, if there was ever a way that we could purchase that to add the dimensions of enhancement for a park. And got a great little gym there. So I just want to say, go for it.
Thank you.
Ms. Austin,
Yes.
unless I misunderstand our function
Your
tonight.
Can you
mic.
turn your microphone?
Unless I misunderstand our function tonight, we're not here to approve or disapprove anything, but just if this fits inside the comprehensive plan, we move it on to the city council for a decision, which, Mr. Poole, I think that's where your discussion and your questions really belong. If you want some action on them, is at the city council meeting. As we're just, I don't think we can either delete or add things to this. We're supposed to just see that it fits within the comprehensive plan and move it on. Do I have that right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. And we, like I said, we as staff can certainly check with the city attorney on the issue of the library and the water tower, although I feel fairly confident that both have been addressed.
Is there any further testimony?
I see none online and I have not received any other requests.
And there's no one else in the audience that would like to speak on this? Okay. Do you have any, staff, do you have any specifically addressed questions that you'd like to, or issues that you'd like to raise, right, that you'd like to address right now?
No, I don't think so, unless there's any additional questions for me.
Okay. Do any members of the commission have any questions regarding the testimony? Anyone? No. Okay. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. If anyone would like to do so.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Labonte made the motion to close the public hearing and Commissioner Smith seconded it. Roll call vote, please, Tammy?
Commission, excuse me, Commissioner Mercero,
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Labonte,
Yes.
Commissioner Langston,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
Yes.
Commissioner Volbada,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes. Public hearing has been closed at 7:52. Deliberation. Any deliberations?
My thoughts.
Okay.
So back to one of the first things that we talked about was that the comp plan that was created many years ago, had these areas designated as residential. However, with that excerpt from the housing needs analysis, having these areas exempt from it kind of makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with all of this.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Commissioner Weiss.
I'm good. No comments for me.
Commissioner Langston, do you have any?
None. Thank you.
Commissioner Mercero, do you have any input?
I have no input. I'm up for it.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, any comments or?
No.
Commissioner Labonte?
No.
Okay. I would definitely entertain a motion to proceed.
I'll move. Sure. Yeah. Make a motion. We recommend approval of ZC 24-01 and CP 24-01, rezoning and redesignation to open space to the city council for public hearing at their meeting on September 10th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, Commissioner Langston made the motion. Labonte, I'm sorry, excuse me. Commissioner Labonte made the motion and it was seconded by Commissioner Mercero. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Volbada,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss.
Yes.
Commissioner Langston.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Labonte.
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Mercero.
Yes,
Chair Smith.
Yes. Recommendation to move forward. Motion passes. Okay, do we have any business from the public?
I have not received any requests.
Okay. Business from the Planning Commission. We'll start with Commissioner Volbada. And please keep it planning commission related. Thank you.
Yeah, no, nothing from me. Thank you.
Commissioner Weiss?
Well, Mr. Early, who spoke earlier, talked a little bit about development of a parcel adjacent to the wetland that is also adjacent to my house. This parcel does have, the development of this parcel has a potential impact to the property value of my house. So as this moves forward, I will be stepping out of those conversations from a planning commission perspective and engaging with the folks in my community.
Gotcha. Okay, Commissioner Langston.
None, no business for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Mercero, do you have any business to share?
I don't have any business to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Labonte?
I am absolutely honored to be on this planning commission, have an opportunity to vote open space for those parcels, especially for the nature park. Very, very happy with this.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Nor do I. Thank you, everyone, for coming prepared as always. It's an honor to serve with you. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I just wanted to let you know that it wasn't on your agenda. Upcoming meetings, you'll be having one September 17th, but there will also be a joint work session on September 24th with the city council for the options of the Gladstone Town Center project. So I just wanted you guys to keep that in mind, September 24th.
Thank you. Okay,
We had all those months off, so we're really trying to like catch you guys back up and make sure, you know, you get enough meetings this year.
exactly. So would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Labonte and seconded by Commissioner Volbada. Tammy, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Mercero,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
this is for adjourning the meeting. We've had a first and a second, and I'm calling roll.
Okay, I'm for that.
Commissioner Pat Smith,
I'm for it too.
Commissioner Labonte,
I'm for it.
Commissioner Langston,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss,
I'm for it.
Commissioner Volbada,
For it.
Chair Smith.
Yes, the meeting is adjourned at 7:51.